Welcome back, Panther fans. I'm David Brown here with Ryan Graham.
Hey, y'all.
Ryan Gam. Like you're a grandmother now, I think.
There's a political commentator named Ryan Grimm, and I hate it when they say his name because I'm like, that's my name. You're just saying my name wrong.
There you go. And we're joined with the illustrious Ben Moore of 24/7 Sports, Panther Talk, and this is State of Atlanta.
It was slipperier than I thought.
Slippier. I had.
Slicker.
We'll get off track immediately. I had a buddy of mine crash at my house back when I was in high school, and he had to wake up early for church the next morning. So obviously it was a Saturday night, and I said, "This dude is like a dead sleep person. Like when he's asleep, he's out." I got other stories about alarm clocks. Anyhow, I wake the dude up for like, "Dude, Brad, wake up. You gotta go to church." And he wakes up and he's on my floor in my bedroom. This is a high school, like senior year or junior year. He's like, "Am I slippery?" I'm like, "I hope to hell not." I don't know what kind of dream you had.
That's an odd question. I don't want to know the answer. If you find out, just keep it to yourself.
Anyhow. All right. Hey, Ben, thanks for coming on. It's been a long time since you had it on. Had you on. Tim is in the Bahamas, and so screw that guy for having a better life than we do.
Wow.
You know, the one out of the four of us, the one without kids leaves the best.
I'm just wondering when the recession's going to catch up to that guy.
He's recession proof, man.
Buying new houses, going on these Caribbean. This is actually a work trip, so he's getting paid for this one. Getting paid to be in the Bahamas. Yeah,
exactly. It's not digging ditches. No, man. I appreciate you guys having me. Man, always good to catch up, and it has been way too long. And we were talking just briefly off camera. It's dance season. I'm a proud dance dad, as most folks know from following me on social media. And I don't sit still very long, as you guys well know. So glad to jump on and talk about all the news of the day. We got plenty of it for sure.
Yeah, I had a call with my kids' dance. My kids are much younger than yours and nowhere near as talented as yours in dance. But my dance studio or their dance studio scheduled rehearsal for their show on Cinco de Mayo. Do they not know that the father of their dance student is a raging alcoholic? And you're talking about one of the holiest days of the year of drinking drinks that I don't drink any other day of the year. I don't drink margaritas on Cinco de Mayo. I'm swallowing a worm that night.
Yeah, Tecate or Modelo. I don't need to slip to tequila. I can figure it out.
Speaking of slippery, yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I don't drink tequila, but I drink the hell out of a margarita. All right, we'll get into it. The reason why I wanted to have you on, Ben, was to talk a lot about, because like really the only topic we had to talk about tonight was just all this turnover and change just going on with the basketball program, and just like that's just the way that stuff is now. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about like this season we had with Georgia State basketball, because like by the end of December, we were all like, Hayes is gone. He's out of here. Like nothing's changed. It's, bad experiment. Love the guy. Could not say enough positive things about Coach Jonas Hayes as a man, as a person, as an individual, as a recruiter for sure.
And as a hire, when we hired him, we all looked at it and said, "Slam dunk!" Right? This is a great hire. And still, if travel back in time, you find that guy on paper, you still hire that guy.
But by the time that New Year's rolled around, we were all like, "This guy's out of here," and then wham bam, thank you, ma'am. By the end of February, we're like, "This guy is sticking around. There's no doubt about it. He's here," and so he's here. What happened this season?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of several things. So the biggest thing at this level, and coming off of last season where you had 10 scholarship players leave, right? Whether exhausted eligibility or guys going in the portal for better opportunities, like Dewan Odom, for example, or other guys, moving on for a variety of different reasons, whether it was their choice or the staff's choice. So you come in and obviously expectations were a little higher, right? You wanted to see some progression. But I cut it down the middle of basically just like it in football, where you have to have, it's so contingent on a quarterback. basketball's so contingent on your guard play, and we've been really, really, really fortunate with excellent lead guards, right? Going back to Kane Williams, who was here, felt like 800 years because of the COVID rule, but he was a great lead guard. Ryan Harrow before that, and then before that was Devontae White. Like, we've been really, really fortunate for a good 10, 12-year stretch here of having just impact guys at the guard position. So Jonas and his staff brought in, Malachi Brown from Seton Hall, a guy that had only played 72 minutes as a freshman. And really, if you just even look at his game log, it was very, very strange. He'd go in and, play like 3 minutes and then wouldn't play for like 3 weeks. So it was very, very strange, kind of handed him the keys. Jelani Hamilton, super, talented kid, basically four-star guy out of high school, goes to Iowa State, redshirts the whole season, doesn't play. So there was going to be inevitable some growing pains there, but you thought with so many veterans on this team, you had 6 seniors basically on this team that were going to try to buoy it a little bit, especially the big guys. Cesar Edwards coming in, very familiar with Jonas. Obviously, was with them at Xavier. May have honestly, kind of turned some things around if he'd have came the previous offseason, in which he was being recruited pretty heavy by Jonas and Jarvis there. But Nick McMullen kind of having their role there. But there was just a lot of question marks from veterans, and then it gets super young, super inexperienced. And you thought some of these guys would grow up. And we had heard some kind of rumblings about, guys not really adjusting to their roles or feeling really well with their roles. And candidly, there was a lot of risks that, the staff took on guys, and they just flat out didn't pay out. I mean, they just didn't pan out at
Right.
all. Guys did not play to the level they were expected to. There was also injuries, which injuries suck. It just is what it is. They're expecting Jason Jackson to come in and play a little bit. Well, he had a major meniscus injury basically in the preseason and really never found his footing the whole season. And then just announced yesterday he's in the portal. Then, you have a guy who was expected again to do something this season. And again, one of the nicest kids that you'll probably ever meet in DK Manuel, 7 foot, 210, 215 pounds, worked like crazy to gain weight, get stronger. Again, just really can't find his footing. Don't know the future of him in that. So now all of a sudden you get super short from the big man point of view. Your backup point guard comes from Division II, and he's got New York in his blood. Basically, the guy is super edgy and wants to get in guys' faces. Well, that rubs some people the wrong way. And then, oh, by the way, he's not playing. So we had heard some kind of rumblings in the background too of things not going super around the semester mark. And basically, he was a non-factor for better part of January, February, and March. But to your earlier point, I think the patience word gets thrown around too much because of where this program has been. And there was an expectation and a level of standards with this program that just still haven't been met. And I still have a tremendous amount of questions, as everyone should, now with the exits of, basically 9 guys again this offseason. Last year, it was, the staff had to replace 10. This offseason, now it's going to be at least 9, and we're 2 days into the portal. So I think it's been a disaster ultimately from these 3 seasons. I understand a lot of sides of it to say, hey, some continuity, but what does that continuity bring you? I don't really know. I know, initially there was some, 2 years ago, there wasn't the NIL that there is now in basketball. There is money there. It's one of the reasons why Jelani Hamilton's staying. He signed an NIL deal to stay here and be kind of the focal point. And short list, like Brady and Chris and I were going about it. Short list, probably top 3 all time, freshman first seasons ever. Right. In Georgia State history. Obviously, RJ's number 1 and, the head and shoulders above the rest. But you could argue that Jelani's right there, number 2. Super talented guy, obviously, from here. So you're hoping that he'll grab some people with him. It just is yet to be seen. And unfortunately, the high school recruiting has just been awful. I mean, the guys just have not stuck for whatever reason. The staff has gambled, as I mentioned a little earlier, and it just hasn't worked. So,
is that how much of that is the players didn't pan out to be what the expectation was, and how much of that was coaching not be able to get them from that high school to that collegiate level of play, that Division I level of play.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
That super high level of Sun Belt basketball play, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Pittsburgh State.
I think the toughest part about it, you judge coaches not only by wins and losses, right? But you want to look at recruiting, you look at development, you want to see that. But I think it's so much harder now because it's only a 1 year sample for every single program. Like we're seeing it all over, even in the Sun Belt, right? The Sun Belt Player of the Year for the second or third, fourth straight year has jumped in the portal, gone. If you go and look at the All Sun Belt first team, basically for 3 straight seasons, they're all at a different school. So it's really like a 1 year segment over and over again. And the difficult part about it is you have Atlanta as your, as a huge resource, and credit to Jonas and Jarvis and their staff's relationship. They are able to bring in Atlanta kids or bring back Atlanta kids
Right.
for whatever reason, either fit wise, coaching wise, players mindset wise, it hasn't worked. And guys get here, and for whatever reason, a lot of them have regressed from their previous,
Right.
school basically program, which has been difficult. And then what's even worse, and I had it come up, this week and even the previous weeks. I mean, you've had guys leave the program and their stats dramatically increase. I mean, Julian Mackey, for example, was a leading scorer for Houston Christian. Old friend Evan Johnson went basically, and he averaged 14 a game. Think that probably could have helped on this team. Guys, Caleb Scott found his role at Presbyterian, had an
Hudson over
opportunity
at
to play.
Auburn right now, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
exactly.
to me, that points directly at coaching, though, right? I mean, it's like you get a new environment and a new staff over you, and now you're doing all right. Then, like, what's the variable here, right?
Yeah, it's tough, and I think the biggest thing around it, and again, every kid's situation is different. I mean, when you have 5-star players all over the place, and you can play a little bit like Jaheim has, then yeah, you're going to have to raise your level there. I mean, he to his credit, he played there at SMU. He didn't follow Coach Lanier to Rice. Had opportunity to go to Auburn, again, one of the best programs in the country right now, and certainly, I mean, they're number one seed, and probably one of the favorites to be in the Final Four here. So I think that's the difficult part about it. And you're seeing even guys like Colin Moore, right, a couple of years ago, where he's in back-to-back NCAA tournaments with Grand Canyon and playing a vital role for them. A defensive stopper. That was the one thing too that we saw with this team that just couldn't stop anybody at times. And it's whether it's effort, whether it's energy, whether it's scheme. Like I don't know if it's just one thing or if it's a lot of things. And that's the frustrating part about it, because we truly didn't know from game to game what we were getting. The team makes a little bit of hay and goes on a little bit of a win streak and kind of gets hopes buoyed a little bit, and then kind of crashes out at the end of the season. And
Yeah.
I think that's what has been most difficult for us, because as folks look back and say, oh man, the RJ Hunter days, guys, I had to remind somebody the other day that was 10 years ago. Like
Yeah.
that was the shot was 10 years ago. So like it's the standard is the standard, but who's enforcing that standard, I guess, is my next question. And my kind of pushback is, we all know the contracts out there, that's public. I was told very, very early that a buyout was not going to be an issue financially. Georgia State has the money. Athletics has the money. They're going to finish in the black again this fiscal year, several $1 million basically in the positive. So
Well, yeah, because they
that
employ
wasn't
like
an
8
issue.
people.
Wait,
They
what's
don't
the
they
oh,
don't really
wait.
have a staff. We talked to, who was it, Ryan? I think it was the ODU podcast, where the guys were like, they had like a staff of 7 just working NIL, and we have a staff of 1 working all of actual like pack development.
Yeah, I think it's 2. Yeah, I think yeah, Eli's in there, and but I mean, I think that's the difficult part about it is, again, part of the task as well from a department. I mean, I've talked to anybody and everybody that will listen, is just saying, listen, like, I don't blame the people in the role they're in.
No,
They don't have any help. Like, they just don't. And whether
right.
it's communications or development or anything else, like, you just can't be a one person army and go out there and expect significant results. And it's been I think one of the biggest failures post COVID is you just haven't had people. Good people have left, great people have left and not been replaced. That money Lord knows where it goes. I'd love to, I'm not a financial guy. I'm married to a CFO, but love to get an audited budget and kind of figure out where that money's going, and we'll see. I mean, we still don't
You
have shovels in the ground for a baseball stadium either, and that was
yeah,
announced
we
about
talk
a year
about
ago.
that
I
a
had
lot.
that as a question to talk to you about, because I know
You
you've been kind of, and we'll go
Yeah,
back,
before we jump,
keep
I had a
Yeah,
question.
come on.
So
well,
you said
yeah,
you just said
go ahead.
you mentioned the contract stuff was out in the open. I don't know the contract stuff.
Yeah.
I had heard it was not out in the open last week, and I haven't. What is the contract stuff?
Yeah, so basically, what I mean, the contract terms. He signed a 5-year deal, basically, and this was year 3 going into now year 4. So, I
Okay,
mean,
so it's not like a new there's no
no,
extension or
no,
anything.
no,
Okay,
no,
cool,
no,
cool.
Lord
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
But
That's
no,
sort of
there's
where we were. We knew he was going to play, coach the
yeah,
next year, but that he wasn't going to extension. We're all sort of like scratching our heads on that. Like,
and here's
what is that?
yeah, and here's the biggest thing. Ultimately, I mean, this is year 4. So basically, most coaches don't go into the final year of a contract. Ron Hunter did. Ron Hunter went to his final year of his contract, and basically ceased communication. In October of that season, knew he was leaving. I thought he basically was going to have an opportunity at the Vanderbilt job. It was basically either Vanderbilt and then Tulane came running, and he's done a fantastic job there at Tulane. But I think the overarching piece to this is, this season, whether the results match what an extension would warrant or not, the buyout's still going to be $500,000 to buy him out for this final year, basically the year 5 of his contract. You still have to basically go out and hire another coach as well. So you're talking probably $1 million plus decision. So I get why maybe it wasn't made, but I also don't know about, again, what's coming in. We don't know that
Yep.
yet because we have so many people going out right now. There will be visits, coming up in the first few weekends of April as things go out. We've heard some names so far, kind of behind the scenes of guys, efficient players, guys that could come. I mean, Justin Archer, guy that unfortunately is left-handed, and he had a left hand injury, basically knocked him out for the whole season. He is eligible to come back, and from what I understand, will be back as well. They're the staff's very high on the 2 commits, the signees. I've talked to both of them. Micah Tucker, guy at OTE, he was in the championship game over there at OTE. He scored 22 points and is more of a lead point guard. Not sure if he's going to be tabbed to kind of be that guy as a freshman. A whole lot of pressure there. Chris Jones is a freak show athlete, probably one of the best athletes this program has had. I'd say probably the last 10, 11 years. Just ridiculously big-bodied, 6'4", 195 pounds. Honestly, look like he can play outside linebacker and run around. But just ridiculous vertical leap from Jonas and Jarvis's high school there at Douglas, Douglas High School. But I think the difference, the difficult part here is to judge this staff on high school guys and get excited about the high school guys. And this is coming from a guy that's covered recruiting. This is year 17, where it's hard to get excited about high school guys when they really haven't played much or played well, and I think that's the difficult part about it. Where this staff is hit is on transfers, and you have a whole bunch of scholarships now to go utilize on transfers, and it's just, now what do you bring in? You know what this team needs, you know what this team was deficient in, but now there's no continuity. There's no, hey, I can see
Right.
this guy grow from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 because they're all gone.
That's a problem that everyone's facing though. So it sort of is like
Mhm.
normalized, and it's like if everyone's struggling with that same problem and some are still seeing success, then it's really hard to say, well, that's an excuse,
Yeah,
right? If
it is.
everyone's
It's a
dealing with it,
reason.
it's not an
100%.
excuse,
Yep.
right? Because
Exactly.
Yeah,
everyone's dealing with it.
there's a thread that got started, I think, today on the Sunbelt board, and it was just basically like, "Hey guys, all of us are starting from scratch," like, because like it's
Yeah,
across the board in the conference. There's players leaving everywhere. Some schools have like one guy returning from last season
us,
already.
it
I think
sounds like.
Monroe or something like that. And
Yeah.
then you got Arkansas State's coach is
Yep.
already took off. I mean, so yeah, so we're all kind of playing in the same environment, the
Yep.
same type of situation. It's so, yeah, it's not an excuse, but it's like, all right, what kind of coach can adapt and do that? And I see that, and that's where I think Georgia State is in like the best position, because Coach McGee, we call him AD McGee over here, Coach AD McGee, because he's doing like multiple roles over there. But he acknowledges, when it comes to playing college athletics, I mean, he's obviously talking about football, but basketball as well. There's not a better place you can play than Atlanta, Georgia. And, as an athlete, the connections you can make, the futures you can have, whether that goes into your sports or whether it goes
Mhm.
into a professional career. not a better place to play. So we should have the upper hand. We talk about being the anomaly or the outlier in the Sun Belt Conference by being that downtown urban research university versus all these agricultural, like, kiss your cousin schools and stuff. But like, we should be the
Yeah,
easiest place to recruit players to play,
100%.
right? And especially with basketball, with the box, with the convocation center.
Yep.
Come on,
And now
before
you have now you have NIL. There's no issue there. You have businesses jumping on board. You have mix there. I mean, I've had detailed conversation with Mike Holmes, who's obviously still very much front and center, even though he's not working for athletics, is involved with the All Blue All NIL. I mean, their goal is basically to hit $1 million this year.
Ryan, did you hear that? Did you hear that, Ryan? All blue, all NIL. Ryan calls it all blue, all nil because he's.
Because that's how I look at it. I see all blue, all nil.
All right,
I
go.
mean,
Sorry, Ben. Go
no,
ahead. Sorry.
you're good. But no, I mean, he has super aggressive goals, and I have no doubt that he'll hit them. He told everyone basically this was going to be, once this got started and once he wanted to build and get his way, it was going to be right at the top of the Sun Belt for a lot of different pieces. And I believe James Madison was at the top last year, right about $520,000 in their NIL. So we knew kind of what that was. Well, obviously they had a great season in football that pulled everything up. Great season in basketball as well. They lost their coach. They took steps back, but you still have that NIL money coming in and businesses are bought in. I think that's the biggest thing too, is both football and basketball need to see success. And because ultimately there is some level, and a lot of stuff has been written about it. There is a burnout factor here, right? You're going back to the same people and asking for more money. If it doesn't work, then what, right? You don't want to continue to throw money after money after money. And I think, this is where fans in a lot of ways are making choices. And that's the hardest part ultimately, because you're saying, all right, well, I want to be supportive, but at what cost? And where does my support stop? Because, hey, maybe I don't trust your evaluation of guys. And that's, I mean, you asked the question, Ryan, everyone's dealing with this. How does this make it different? It comes down to evaluation and fit. It's what you want to do, what you want to bring guys in. I mean, that's the difficult part about it. If this was 3 or 4 years ago, and you saw the level of talent brought in the last 3 cycles, you're seeing and these guys stay and progress. Yeah, there would be super depth in this program, right? Again, Dwan Odom was a guy that had an additional year of eligibility. Imagining him being the starting point guard and Malachi Brown being his backup. It's
But
pretty solid.
how valuable is it to compare it to like a situation that just doesn't exist and won't exist, right?
Yeah,
It's like you need a coach that knows how to pivot and
sure.
frankly can embrace the chaos. Like we need to embrace the chaos and figure out how to leverage it ourselves, not have somebody who is looking to the past and saying, well, if it were only like this, we'd be
Yeah,
in good shape. Well, what are you doing right now that would have been good then that is maybe not as good now, and what
yeah,
can you be doing differently? Is really what we need to be doing.
yeah.
And I'm not saying Hayes isn't doing that. I have no idea what Hayes is doing behind the scenes. I just it's not worthwhile in my opinion to take a look at what would have worked back
Yeah,
then
for
when
sure.
it's so different now.
I
It's
think we
also hard to
need.
judge it though. It's also hard to judge it in
Well,
areas
a
when
win loss record is pretty easy to
right.
look at, and
But
it's not
no,
good.
yeah. But at the same point, let's talk candidly. If Ryan Harrow has one season at Georgia State, is he sticking around another year in this climate? No. If
Yeah. See,
RJ
this is
Hunter's
why I
there, if
think
his dad's not there,
Yeah.
no.
No.
Like
we talk.
I could go. The
We
list could
talk
go on and
about.
on.
Yep.
Demarcus
We talk
Simons,
about
yeah, he'd be gone.
the
Yep.
we talk about Magic City a lot, and I really Ryan and I and Tim talk about Magic City a lot. I think we got to get Magic City on board as an NIL sponsor,
What's the problem?
and all athletes get like a gold card to Magic City. Like they just run the show. It's the equivalent of Ludacris showing up inside of Magic City if they're there, and that's our sales pitch to these 18 and 22-year-old kids
Look, you're not
about
getting
coming to
NIL
like.
money, but you do get this card, and this
It's
card
like and it comes with all you can eat wings.
That's what we're selling. We're selling the wings, obviously. That's why people go to Magic City, right? Right.
Exactly.
I don't know, I've never been.
Lou Williams from the Hawks told us as much. That's his favorite to go spot. I mean,
Exactly.
you can get a table. There's entertainment. I hear. There's great food. Yeah,
Dinner
I
and a
don't
show, right?
absolutely. It's not like quite Agatha's like murder mystery, but it's entertainment, right? Let's go.
Yeah, there's no mystery. It's
There's
all
You know,
out there.
I still wanna get, like, a steak special at a strip club at some point. That's, like I've always wanted to do that and just never have, 'cause, you don't just go out of your way for that kind of stuff. But eating wet chicken wings and like on your finger and like like while that's like I don't know, man. That just to me is no good.
Well, so normally you go to a strip club. Normally, I haven't been to a strip club in forever, but you go to a strip club and there's like there's the no touch policy, and then those bouncers, those bodyguards, they'll really enforce it. You got spicy fingers, the girls are going to enforce the no touch policy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Valid point. Yep.
You want to touch me with lemon pepper wet? No, thank you.
It was just lemon pepper until I
it's not wet. Oh boy. Last call talk.
Love you guys.
Yeah, there we go. Kind of going back to a question I asked you before about Hayes' season and everything. Do you think that going into the Sun Belt tournament that he was already sticking around, or was that tournament win against Trash Down South kind of solidified things? Or where was being polite? Where was Charlie Cobb's mindset going into that Sun Belt tournament?
Yeah, I won't pretend to kind of get in his head, but I mean, we had heard basically that if a move was going to be made, it likely was going to have to be after the Sun Belt tournament, and maybe even after Selection Sunday. I think that win obviously didn't hurt. Didn't give another reason or another thought process into kind of removing him. But I think the biggest thing ultimately, he is liked, within, I guess, the basketball community here locally. Again, I thought more of his players would have stuck around. Some guys that we've kind of seen some progression on. It just hasn't happened. And whether it's his decision or staff's decision, or whether it's the player's decision, we'll find out. I'm sure we'll kind of know when some of these guys, where they go, where they land, if they had opportunities. Every single one of these guys now has agents, and the agents are constantly shopping guys and constantly moving stuff out. Some of that kind of triggers behavior and triggers decisions, which is difficult to kind of navigate, because the coaches just don't know. They don't know, hey, from and the window shrunk too. I mean, it was 30 days before. Now it's kind of shrunk down. So this window will slam shut where people have to basically declare the decisions. But I mean, to your point earlier, Ryan, like every team is dealing with this right now. So you're trying to have solidify conversation. We saw it in football. I mean, Freddie Brock had a contract with, to basically stay for another year. And now he was coming back. And then his agent went out there and was trying to shop for more money. And basically he's out there picking up offers now. Right. But this is the tough part about it. I guess this is where I kind of come back as well, is if any three of us were in professional situations and we had an opportunity to, make significantly more money, I'd go do it. Because, I mean, let's be candid about this. Is Freddie Brock an NFL back? No. Is he probably an NFL prospect at this point? No. So if you can go and capitalize and make as much money as you can right now, God bless you, man. Good luck to you. But the tough part about it, if I'm a running back, I'm going to ride with Del McGee. Like, he's pumped dudes in the NFL every single year, and he just had his best season of his career and wasn't completely worn out by the end of the season, because we know how Del, likes to rotate back. So I think that's the tough part about it too. I think there's still some credibility that Jonas has to earn with players and even recruits. Is he can sell a vision, but the results haven't been there, right? You're seeing guys again, kind of exit the program, and as I mentioned earlier, get better or have better seasons. That's a tough pill to swallow ultimately. And everyone sees it. Everyone goes and says, look, and, by the way, we've seen the argument thrown around there as well. The APR still matters at places like Georgia State. We know that's what was a huge sticking point in Ron Hunter's conversations with Charlie Cobb, and kind of how it ended poorly because of how bad the basketball GPA was. Well, if you have a ton of players transferring, that hurts your APR. And that's direct payments to the university and athletics, and get you on double secret probation if it's bad enough. So I think that's the difficult part about this too, is navigating all of that. And there's going to be continued conversations about, academic requirements and being able to pull things and this and that and the other. But I still haven't seen anybody basically ineligible. I don't know about y'all, but I haven't seen anything hit the wire saying, guys and athletes are not eligible as long as they're, kind of in good standing. And, it's just a very interesting time right now. I've done other podcasts and other conversations 24/7.
What? There's other podcasts? No.
No good ones.
No, not as good as this one, obviously.
Aren't you a co-host on Thursday?
I am not actually.
Oh,
No,
okay. Alright.
no, it's funny. I make guest appearances there once when Brady will have me. No, but I don't see this the immediate solution, and I don't know that it's going to change. I think it's just like you said, you guys said earlier, like it's the coaches that adapt to this the fastest and realize that hey, if I can go and convince guys to come in for 1 year, ball out, go get paid somewhere else, that's probably going to be the route that I go. And to be candid, that's what Dell has said. Dell has basically said, look, we're going to embrace the portal. We understand it. We're going to tell guys, hey, look, you can come here and ball out and make a ton of money. I mean, look at Dorian Fleming. He's, basically went from Georgia State, had a really good, season, and then
Mhm.
bounced to Maryland, where he may play in the Big
God,
Ten.
who wants to go to Maryland? My God. It's
They
like,
they 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 emptied out their NIL, man. I
well,
mean,
yeah,
this
I mean
is
they got ACC money, so or ACC,
big
right?
Big Ten,
Big
Big
Ten,
Ten, Big Ten. Yeah,
Big Ten,
but
Big Ten. Yeah, whatever.
that's
It's all yeah,
that's
it's
the
not
other
so
Better
side.
basketball league.
yeah.
I mean, but
So
you just look at
I
collectives. I mean, collectives and revenue sharing, and guys are getting money at Power Four teams, and that's, I mean, the plan is out
so
there.
I had this idea I just came up with during this conversation we've had.
Yeah,
The NCAA, which has no authority anymore at all, especially when it comes to NIL, but the NCAA needs to find a way to enforce a franchise tag through NIL. All right. So we have like the ability to retain somebody based off of how much that position's making through like the top five paid, whatever the NFL does with their franchise tag, and be able to hold on. We can franchise a player and be like, Freddie Brock, sorry, you're going nowhere, buddy. We franchise you. They've got to pay us for you to go somewhere else.
Well,
it's it.
you would do a contract with a buyout. I mean,
Yeah,
that's really
it's
the answer is it's a
It
contract with a
it is.
buyout.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. That will be happening at some point. Where basically, like, if you leave under the term, and here's the term, here's where it is, then
Yeah.
basically you're not going to do it. And there you do have to. Oh, by the way, if you sign an agreement and you are getting paid, or you're getting stair step paid monthly, which a lot of these NIL deals nationally are, from what we have kind of gathered. The difficult part about this, and folks just don't know, NFL contracts, NBA contracts, Major League Baseball contracts, they're all public. You can go to get the information out there. It's in the athlete and the agent's best interest to put that information out there. So you can see terms, you can see different things like this. Everything behind the scenes in college right now all have non-disclosure agreements. So when you have NDAs, the numbers are floated and are mostly, from everyone that I've talked to, from people that are in charge of our level down here, folks that I've talked to in the ACC, SEC, NIL, they're all inflated. Where the players will go in there because they want the number out there, right? If I
Yeah.
made if I make 100 this year, I want to make 200 next, and X, Y, Z, and this car, and this, and this, and this. And there's people throwing riders in different things, and they got to have tickets to this game and a suite here. This, like, it's gotten to a level where I think, again, at some point there's going to be pushback from the schools and even the coaches, and saying, look, like, we don't want to grab this kid because he has baggage, and his baggage is not attitude, or hey, he's a knucklehead. It's he's asking for too much, and good luck to you getting it. You got
Yeah.
places like Duke paying their quarterback $4 million a year at
Or like, yeah,
Duke,
we're gonna pay you that, but like, if you're just gonna be gone next year, we don't need that. That's not
right?
worth it to us. So
Or signing multi-year deals, and that's the
yeah,
other side, is going in, basically saying,
When
listen, where we have a 2-year deal, and here you
yeah.
go.
when does the disconnect? 'Cause, like, the beauty of so many fans are like, oh, I'm a pro sports fan. I love NFL, I love Major League Baseball, I love NBA, and there's people that are like, I'm a college guy. I like the quote unquote amateur aspect of it.
Yes,
But like,
absolutely.
part of what I loved about college sports was, yeah, this, we all went to school before football was there, but like, these guys were in my classes. I saw them. They were at the same parties I went to. We
Sure.
saw each other around town and
Yep.
whatever it was. So when you're rooting for your college team, it's because this is my
Right.
community. This is something I was part of.
Right.
And with NIL, you're completely separating yourself from that. I know a Georgia State fan whose kids go to UGA, and he's like, I couldn't care less about this football team because I see these guys driving their Lambos or their Ferraris or whatever they are around downtown
Types
Athens,
of
which is
stuff. Yep.
totally. Could you, Ryan? You grew up in Athens. Could you imagine like back in the day, just seeing a Lambo driving through?
No, but what I can tell you is that I've heard this exact same conversation happen 20 years ago.
Yeah.
about them driving around campus in their golf carts and their whatever, and like, and now they're
Souped
not
up.
actually
Yeah,
part of the student base. They're
yeah,
separate and they're assholes and nobody likes them on campus and stuff like
yeah.
that. So like, it's like the same story. They're just Ferraris instead of golf carts now,
Well,
which is
but my question was, at what point does this NIL thing kinda push that fan away
Mhm.
from, like, that the whole reason why they were involved with it, why they got so attached to it in the first place. This was my person. This was the guy that went to this team went to my school, and I feel like that's what's in jeopardy.
Yeah. And the biggest part about it too is with revenue sharing, which we know with the House settlement, and I'm not going to bore anybody to go read it. If you need something to help you fall asleep, go read the brief of it. But the impetus of all this is the athletes and again courts and major courts have realized, okay, yes, you cannot use my likeness, and I haven't signed away rights basically just because I play for your school. And more folks have, and again, I want to be clear about this. It should have been this way the entire way. Guys should
Right.
have been able to profit off their name, image, and likeness. The problem is immediately it was an enticement, and it's an enticement to come here. And this is why again the numbers get put out there, and the agents are always shopping. And I mean, you've had multiple cases in the ACC and SEC where agents have basically told kids, "Oh yeah, I can get you this, I can get you this," and they don't get them, and they jump in the
Mhm.
portal, and now they're stuck. And now you're going, all right, I had a really good situation. The coaches were fine with me. I was fine with the coaches, but my agent, who is not certified in many cases, and that's the other side in professional sports, you have a certification process. You guys have to go through this. It's not somebody's uncle or somebody's friend or this and that and the other. Locally, I talked to a law firm that they put a segment of their business with NIL, and they have teamed with CPAs, because the other side of this is there's financial ramifications for these families that they're not used to making this amount of money and having this
Yeah.
amount of money in a lump sum. But understanding this and just the education part of it is, look, I have a good situation here. Why am I jumping? It's the question where I mean, we asked it, Brady and Chris and I did with Malachi Brown getting back to basketball. He would have been the starting point guard again this year as a
Yeah.
second year player to progress and grow. And we all kind of saw him hit a wall last 5-6 years, or I mean 5-6 games, because he hadn't played that much. He hadn't played that much probably since high school. So for him, was in a really good situation. Now he may have bettered his situation. I don't know that. It's still to be determined. But to your point, I think a lot of times the fans are going to get disinterested, and even worse, the athletics departments are going to try to overcompensate for this revenue sharing, right? They have budgets, they have numbers, they have things that they want to do. And you're going to see basically the normal average fan get priced out, where you're basically going, yeah, I can't afford to go and spend all this money and take all these road trips and do all this and that and the other, because I'm done with it. And I think
Yeah.
it's not going to come in one huge wave, but I think it's going to be in a little bit of an erosion. But I tell people all the time, as long as the TV numbers continue to do this, and the money and the payouts continue to go higher, people just
Yeah.
kind of shrug their shoulders. They're like,
I mean, I think that you're talking about that money grab. I'm all for it. Make money. Like that's why we're here and everything. But like I looked at USFL or UFL, whatever the hell the league's called, the spring league, and I'm from Memphis, and I looked at buying myself a Memphis Showboats T-shirt, cheapest shirt, $35 with an $8 shipping fee. I'm like, come on, dude, you guys are. I look at the
you
UFL
should
the
be
same way
giving
I
these
look at.
away really to market
Yeah,
your damn product.
I look at UFL the same way I kind of look at Georgia State. Is like the barriers to of entry to be a fan
should
should
be
be
minimal. Yep,
as low as possible.
totally
You
agree.
want your brand, your logo everywhere,
Yep,
and they're doing the same thing the NFL is doing. A polo shirt, a Showboats or any
80,
team,
80
the
bucks, 90 bucks.
Stallions or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. I kind of want to be a Michigan Panthers fan because Panthers, but I've got no connection to Michigan. I don't give a shit about them and whatever. Either
Oh,
way,
we did that too, right? The polos for a long time, the branded, proper branded polos with whatever,
yeah, but
Adidas or
$85.
Under Armour,
This is I'm wearing
$80.
I'm wearing a Georgia State polo that I probably bought for $30, $40, whatever, which I thought was too much then. $85 for an equivalent polo of a UFL team. Like, come on.
Mhm.
And first of all, we're not even putting these teams in like huge markets. So the disposable income in Memphis
Not
and
great.
Birmingham is
Yep.
not nearly the same thing as
Yep.
it is in other places.
Yep.
Same thing with Georgia State. Like, I think that you should be able to like walk up to Georgia State bookstore and like, hey, I want a Georgia State jersey. I'm like, go
At least a
wear it.
T-shirt.
Yeah, wear it everywhere, and
Yeah.
we love to have you. But yeah, they
Yeah.
just had to expose that brand. I don't know how I got on that whole
No, you're
topic,
good,
but
but I think
yeah,
ultimately, like, I mean, that's you're pricing out fans, and I think this is the hardest part about it. And just going back to our immediate conversation, Georgia State basketball, and I've said this for years, doesn't have an enormous fan base. It just doesn't. And ultimately, like Atlanta, we're going to be fair weather when the team's not doing well. Just as anybody else in the Sun Belt, if the team's not
yeah.
doing well, no one's showing up to games. And there are certainly outliers. We hear all about them on Twitter and how everyone has the greatest fan base. When you're
I
winning,
I
awesome.
do wanna add that it does not help that our athletic department does nothing to get warm bodies in the doors. Like,
But
you
it's
know, if you're
not.
gonna
That's
fight
not new.
against, I know it's an uphill
Yeah,
battle, I get it, we're losing, but,
yeah,
like, to throw your hands up and just be like, "We're done, and we're
yeah.
just gonna accept this and have a TDS crowd, and that's it." I mean, I don't know. Before you
But
were gonna come on, I was prepared to just complain the whole time, so,
no, you're
here I am.
you're good. No, but I think it's kind of one of those things too, where and I've said it for a while. Like, I mean, this is the mindset, and ultimately, it's going to be return on investment, and anything that doesn't get ROI is not going to be done. And it's kind of the nature of the beast right now. And in a lot of ways, we're kind of just stuck staring at it. But I mean, ultimately, these coaches have to win. Del McGee has to win. I mean, he knows that.
Yeah.
That's why he had tremendous roster turnover. I mean, you have 55 new players come in basically in January. And again, you look percentage wise, you're going to
But
have
that's not
even
uncommon,
that.
Ryan. Ryan, you scoffed. That's not
Yeah.
uncommon. That's
No, I
I
know.
know,
that's
but it's crazy. It's
state.
just crazy.
It's
It's crazy.
crazy.
It's just nuts.
I'm Ben. I'm glad that you actually started talking about that because my next question for you is going to be like, we're in the middle of spring practice right now. Uh, is there anything that is going on? You can
Yeah.
share anything that's which give us an insight
Yeah.
on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, good quarterback battle. We'll start there because that's the thing that everyone wants to know about. The guys were on spring break, so they were all posting videos, and they're working out basically wherever they were, either going back home or out on the beach and running and doing videos. Even saw some of the specialists who I just love. Go find GSU specialists on Twitter and or Instagram. It's just a glorious account. We're getting back to the old days of like how the great content of like Brandon Wright and Charlie Flint and those guys with this bunch. They're just specialists are just different, man. But no, I mean PJ Hatter, Cam Brown, Christian Veyer is still very much here, still doing wants an opportunity to play. TJ Stanley, the freshman in from Toombs County, is taking reps as well. There's a really good battle there. Offensive and defensive line have really done pretty well for the most part. I think we've again, knock on wood or whatever's near you. It actually has been a healthy camp so far, and just obviously getting to April 11th and getting it to that finish line. There's some guys that came in that maybe had some injury questions about. Like, I mean, guy like Leo Blackburn that came over from Georgia Tech. He's a massive receiver. In the Sun Belt, you don't see many 6'4", 6'5" guys that can run like he is. The biggest thing with him at Tech, he just really could never stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, he can be that guy. And we saw it with Josias Creedle, right, in the previous years. This great big body, had all the potential in the world, but it just seemed like every single season there was something. So again, injury luck is going to be a big factor. That overhauled the offensive line. I mean, there's literally two full, basically units full of offensive line, defensive line, linebackers. The freshmen are going to play. I've been told that over and over again. The guys that showed up early, there's going to be several on defense that play right away. They're just too good physically. Guys in the secondary, that was kind of one of the areas that I
Well, so,
circled
so
going to the
that's
spring too was really concerning. But guys are looking really really strong so far this
So
spring from
I,
what
I
I
like
hear.
to hear that because we talked about so this is like the best recruiting class in Georgia State history,
Mhm.
and it's like what it was like the second or like third best
Yeah.
G5 recruiting class
Yep.
this entire year, and so we were talking about it, and I'm like, that's great, that's awesome, but so many times these freshmen don't play, so you may have a great recruiting class, but if
Yep.
you're not going to see them on the field, it doesn't matter how good your this year's recruiting
Yep.
class is, you'll
Especially if
find
they
out
transfer out next year. They don't play this year, they transfer
exactly.
out next year.
But
Yeah.
so you're saying we will see some freshmen
100%.
play. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're
encouraging.
going to see.
That's a
Listen,
reason
you're
to get excited about this season based off of that recruiting class for
the
sure.
the one thing I will say immediately. We talked about Freddie Brock a little earlier. That's going to give opportunities to Dewan Payton 100%. The
Yeah,
kid from Lanier, All State, caliber running back, arguably the best running back in the state in terms of power and speed. He's in. What's wild too is LaDainian Martin was a guy who was an All State guy in South Carolina. He suffered a knee injury in the playoff game. I thought we weren't going to see him at all. He's a limited participant in spring. I was stunned by that. See, like
right.
pictures and videos and stuff of him, and I'm like, okay, he may actually be back by August. You're going to see guys play on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to see guys, on the defensive line, go in the rotation because ultimately you've got 800 something snaps, 850 snaps basically that are up for grabs right now on the defensive side. And we know, hey, look, 3-4 guys aren't going to play. Like this staff wants to rotate a lot of guys. I'm still very interested to see too with all the coaching turnover because that was the other side, not only the player
Mhm.
turnover but the coaching turnover. Trying to kind
Right,
of see what does a Hugh Jackson offense look like? What with the turnover on the defensive side of the ball when Dell basically just said, "Look, it wasn't good enough, man. You just on so many different levels, it just wasn't good enough defensively." He went out and made changes and brought guys in, that have been around bigger, nastier programs that have had, really good defenses. So I'm interested to see kind of how that philosophy meshes. But I was told pretty early, look, if you're not going to be elite and help this program win championships, you can't be here. And that's
right.
that's the mindset right now. And again, so far so good. They got back started, yesterday, restart after spring, and they'll have to do that acclimation period again, where they're kind of not in full
Right,
pads
not
and
no
everything until
pads and all
yeah,
that kind of
not
stuff, yeah, yeah.
not
Which
not
is
until
what
I think Thursday. So yeah,
that was like what Coach Elliott was trying to avoid was like that break, right? Like, that's why he did
yeah,
everything so that and to get, maximize
lake time.
the lake
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Can't got to get out there for good lake weather. Yeah.
Is there anything is there anything even to like to look forward to or I should say look forward to. Is there anything that's like to look at during the spring game or is that just fanfare? That's just
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing, the harder, tougher practices like they'll scrimmage, this upcoming Saturday. They'll scrimmage again the following Saturday. Those are the real stuff where basically they're going to try to implement specific game plans, specific
Mhm,
things in for week one against Ole Miss. I think ultimately, and I kind of say, I mean, depending on the coaching philosophies, I mean, everybody's a little bit different, right? You're starting to see the kind of the metamorphosis of the spring games too, where guys are doing like skills challenges and doing other stuff where it's not traditional. Dell's a little bit more traditional. He's going to do a game. He's going to do offense, defense. He's going to have, these guys over here, this guy's over here. I think the biggest thing ultimately is you're probably only going to have 10 or 12 guys that aren't on this roster in August that are not
right.
here. There's only 10 signees that are not here right now. I think basically with Freddie leaving, I think there's only probably a possibility of 3 scholarships. I know they're looking. The staff is going out and really kind of mining 1 or 2 other positions. Not really. I mean, probably for depth, you're not looking for any probably starters at this point. So I think the more exciting part about it is this is probably going to be your starting 22 are going to be out there.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look at it. You can see who has the lead, who looks good. Again, guy like Cam Brown, physical, impressive specimen. PJ Hatter can absolutely fly. He has wide receiver speed at quarterback, and I
So
just don't think we've had somebody like that here.
So, we there was like some of the big programs like the Texases and the USC's and like, I don't know Kansas some crap team. They they kind of abandoned the spring
Yeah,
game because they and like there's speculation or they or
fear,
some have come out and flat out
fear.
said
Yeah,
it was to avoid teams coming and poaching their rosters
100%.
through the portal. Is that something that you think that Georgia State should be concerned about?
I mean,
after the spring game, or
the window's there. I mean, it is what it is. I think the toughest part about it too is, again, I mean, Dell's very honest in communicating with guys and letting them know, here, this is what we're kind of targeting. I mean, there's
Mhm,
guys on this roster like Ted Hurst who signed NIL deals, and basically will have an agreement to be here. If they leave, they have to pay some of that money back. So, um, it could happen. I think the interesting part about it, coaches are always fearful, man. They're
right,
scared to death of, if any, talk to any coach in America, they wouldn't want to release a depth chart. They wouldn't want to release, heights and weights. They wouldn't want to release a roster. No film whatsoever. But then you also have those coaches who do get it and say, look, this can be a commercial for our program, so let's put it on ESPN
right,
Plus and do whatever. Sean was always deathly afraid of doing anything on ESPN Plus. Didn't want to do it. Didn't want to give away any secrets. Um, I get
He
all
didn't do
sides of
anything
it.
interesting. What did he not wanna give away? He
Yeah,
just
it's
keep
like
running up the middle, y'all.
personnel groupings. I
yeah.
mean, this is what I've told people, man.
The Georgia State Hard Knocks show with Coach Elliott would just be on a lake in
Yeah.
Columbia, South Carolina the entire
It's
time, you know?
but I mean,
Our
here's the
our secret sauce was, "We're gonna run it."
yeah. Here's exactly, go power, go pull your guard. But I think the hardest part too is, you know I think for a program like ours, and we've said it since the beginning, right? The more information, the more access people that actually care about this program, the better, right? More photos, more videos, more content. We saw it even during COVID, where you had Hannah Braxton, who was on the recruiting staff, basically interviewing players every single day, and it was great because you just don't know. I mean, it's a helmet sport. You don't know these kids. You don't see
Yeah.
them unless you get there as early as David and Ryan do to tailgate when you see the players walk in. But you
Ah,
know, you like folks don't know these people,
The players
and a
walk
lot of
in?
these kids. A lot of these kids too are coming back, and they're from the state of Georgia. There's talented players as well. Guys like Cody Brown, who was a star at Parkview, guy that signed with Miami. He joined the program as a walk on. He's in that running back room. He's participating in campus right now. There's other guys, offensive linemen, defensive guys, who are going to join this program as walk-ons because they want to be here and they want to play for Dell McGee, and that's a big thing. And that's where I think, getting back to our earlier conversation, that's where this basketball program has to get with Jonas Hayes. And it was that way for Ron Hunter. Ron Hunter had built that up, and built kind of that credibility, and we're seeing it, obviously now at Tulane. So it's got to happen. This is a insanely critical. I mean, that's the other side too. The calendar gets pretty short as well. I mean, the basketball team will reassemble in June, so you
yeah,
got a lot of
yeah.
work to do right now.
I think you what you're basically saying about the spring game is the more important thing to look at, because like the players on the field, they're gonna have their practice and
Hundred
that's gonna
percent.
be fine, but we're not gonna learn a whole lot there, and that's okay. We,
Yeah.
we never do. But the important thing to look at is the head coach essentially gave away a practice. He only has so
Mhm.
many days of practice. He gives up one
15. Yep.
so that marketing can go out there and create a fan service day.
Mhm.
And what do we get out of that? So looking around and saying, "Hey, did we market this well? Is the spring game day experience well executed, fun? Is it bringing in more people? What are we doing here?" That's how you measure spring game
100%.
success is warm bodies in the door,
Mhm.
right? And we did really
Yeah.
well. I think it was last year. We had an awesome spring day. I felt like so I think the we have a way to do it.
Yeah.
I just want to see it done. You know?
Yeah. And prefer not to have B Friday at 4 o'clock. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's a
to
little
be
rough,
candid,
but
That's a difficult one. I mean, like,
I have unlimited PTO, so I'm
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Talking about Ryan and I getting there early to tailgate. That's an easy one right there. Although my wife's out of town, so I do have all the kids with me that day. So yeah.
it's babysitter. No, care.com. You
Eh,
can work
I-
that
I'm
in.
I'm I'm sure there's a cheerleader or two that'll probably watch my kids while I'm over there getting shit faced on the sidelines. I can figure that out. All right.
Living the
I
gimmick. I
got
love it.
a couple quick questions
Yeah.
before we get you out of here. I got you a couple quick questions and then maybe a longer one. Unless you got something, Ryan. We talked about we teased, or we didn't tease. We talked about baseball. You seem to be very pessimistic about baseball breaking ground. You not thinking that's gonna hit Ryan's
No.
timeline of this
This
spring?
quarter,
No, it will. From everything I've been told and I've heard, the construction timeline's not going to be long. It's just one of those situations where it needs to begin, right? We're staring at
Yeah.
April basically next week, to get the field playable and ready. And for this to be the last year in Panthersville, which it should be, you need basically to start the work. And I think you have to start it in spring. You got to get basically, you know, I think again, a ballpark that's 750, 1,000 seats, whatever it is, just pulling this downtown where it can potentially even be expandable is a big deal. The program is off to its best start under Brad
Yeah.
Stromdale. Just picked up another win while we were recording this as well in non-conference, and has that little school down south as well. The series looming, which is a massive one as well, because this is a difficult conference. I think the hardest part for fans that don't follow college baseball is there is really no mid-major league. You really have like low majors and high majors, and
Right.
and the Sun Belt spins like a high major program would. There are programs that spend. Coastal Carolina, obviously, they've won a national championship. They have an NIL collective specifically for baseball, for
Well, that's because teal
retaining
paint
and
is the
and going.
lowest. Teal paint is the lowest color paint price, so they save a lot of money on that horrible ass color when they pay for everything. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, the
my
rest of us painting our grass that dark green, like fools.
But I mean,
uh,
I think that's it. Just gives the level of seriousness, and I think ultimately, Strom needs, he's done a very good job recruiting, building with what he has, and not running away from what his situation is
we
out
know
there in Panthersville. He's recruiting to it, and obviously with the Bus Lot Boys moniker and everything like that, I think it's been great. And it's just now he's got to have a payoff at facilities. That's the one thing that's been missing for such a long time for him.
it's funny because we say the same thing about Strom as we said about Coach Frady. Like they did so much with so little. Utmost respect for what Coach Frady did with that program and everything, and Strom is just taking that to that next step. And yeah, we get that facility where we can get kids. I mean, man, to bring baseball back to downtown Atlanta after the
Huge,
Braves,
huge.
yeah, that's.
Yeah,
I think you can actually get the casual passerby type fan
yeah,
that you'll never get by having baseball being played in that back lot
100%.
in
And
Panthersville.
and listen, baseball fans probably more than anyone. And I'm painting with a broad brush here, but baseball fans as a whole are historians, right? They want to know the game. I mean, the whole idea, and again, whether it happens on the front end or eventually happens, where Hank Aaron and a Hank Aaron museum or monument or something like that to commemorate that. I mean, shoot, I remember the first couple of years we were at Center Park. Is there were people that would come out the day that Sid slid in Fulton County
Yeah.
Stadium in like a group, and we went out there and we talked to somebody in athletics and
Braves
basically got
win,
them all.
Braves win,
Yeah,
Braves win,
got
Braves
them all
win,
tickets.
Braves win.
If you're a native Atlantan, you know that date, where Sid Bream basically came around third. He could high five everybody in the dugout, and slid, and
The slowest man of all in
yeah,
all of professional sports.
and Barry Bonds, three hopping a throw from the outfield. But no, Francisco Cabrera. So they were hanging out, drinking a beer on the site, basically where Sid slid. And there's guys
Yeah.
that and folks that grew up in this and are of certain ages like us, where they want to see baseball downtown Atlanta again. There is a want for that. There's an intrigue there. There's still people that come and that drive by the stadium because they're like, hey, what does it look like? We don't do, I don't think, a good enough job marketing our own building
No.
and talking about
No.
the history that's been built there. I mean, you see the video that's floating around Twitter right now that was taken from the athletics department. It's just a drone video, just rolling around the stadium. How valuable is that? Make that a freaking commercial. It's not
Yeah,
complicated, man.
for sure.
It really isn't. But now
My
baseball will
my
happen. It'll get down. I expect them to be playing, to open the season basically downtown. That's my expectation personally.
my idea for a preseason exhibition game is to get as many prior Braves players as possible to field a team against the Bus Lot Boys and open up the stadium, getting former Braves players against Georgia State Panthers baseball
Get us
players. I think that'd
do
be
like a softball game, like slow pitch softball game. Yeah, why not?
something like that. Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Speaking of, great transition, Ben. I was going to ask. Softball has no plans to move. right now, right?
As of now, it's not a priority. I think it will be at some point, but yeah, they've got a first year coach there, and have already won more games than they did last year. So
Yeah, she's really turned it around. She's, you know,
yeah,
I say it was a slow start, but for a first time head coach, I think she's finding her footing and everything.
yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to see what
And
the ladies are doing out there.
softball, like every single sport, is it's one of those things where you know you have it's such a talent rich state. You just have to keep kids home. You got to keep them engaged. Got to keep and honestly, their facility is not bad comparatively
No,
to other Sunbelt
that's the thing I
programs.
heard is that
That's the
they
one thing that's a little bit
enjoy.
different.
It's like the premier facility at Panthersville is what
Yeah,
Bob Heck
for sure.
Field is out there.
Just
All right,
tons
cool.
of money, no doubt. No tons of
All right,
resources there for sure.
last question.
Yeah.
Let you out of here, and then I'm gonna go piss, and we can do last call, Ryan.
Mhm.
You keep and Ben, feel free to not answer this question, but I'm gonna
No,
call you
no
out on
question
it.
off limits, man. Come on, let's go. You
All
know me.
right, there is a two-word phrase that you use on Panther Talk all the time, and I agree with you, and I just want to get your full expand on your unserious conference comment about the Sun
Oof.
Belt.
Yeah, it's when you don't have when it's we're in March, so we'll talk about March Madness first. When you don't have your announcers on site in your arena, you have them in New Orleans when your
Is that for
conference tournament
basketball?
is
The
happening in
basketball tournament?
Pensacola. Like
Yeah,
this isn't COVID times, man. They're sitting and watching a screen like we all are when you're not in the building. Like it's just it's one of these things where it's another check mark of what? Why? And I think that's the difficult part about it, right? Where you're just looking at these decisions and these conversations and going, what, who thinks this is a good idea? Hey, Keith Gill, like, why wouldn't you have your people, your premier, event here to do this? It's just, the conversations and again, the media deal is locked and it was heralded as such a great thing. And, within about a year, it was terrible. Like you're looking at it and
yeah,
the schools are going, yeah, I would love to have, $5 or $6 million. Well, we're stuck at 2 million for the next, what is it? 2031 basically. So it's
yeah.
25 now. So we got another 6 years basically. And who knows what's going to happen. I mean, James Madison wants out of the Sun Belt. Don't know where they're going. But
Well, I
they,
want out of
they
the Sun
want
Belt
out.
as well,
Yeah,
so
of
We
course.
all do.
But as we've talked about, and it continues to come up, and I wrote about it, which was fact checked by people who worked at Georgia State, both the university and the athletic side of things. So anyone that debates anything in there, I got a ton of words for them. Talked to all the personnel involved back then, and I keep asking. So you have the same president, you have the same athletic director, and the same people in the Sun Belt office as well, where they're just to me not very proactive at all, and they're just kind of existing. While a bunch of other schools and the AAC and other people looking into revenue sharing and doing other things that way, it just kind of feels like the ship is just kind of on autopilot. And I think that's the difficult part about it is we're not the only fan base that's saying that and the only program that's saying it. They're looking around and going, well, why is this XYZ conference exploring this? And they're looking at innovative ways. This feels like it's just very much stuck in the mud. And it's something that has been,
yeah,
well, let's just operate like college athletics did in the 90s and early 2000s. Well, the world has flipped 6 times since then. So I
yeah,
think that's the hard part for me is you're just seeing decisions that are super head scratching. You again, bowl tie-ins are a big thing as well. Is it really that attractive to continue to have some of these bowl tie-ins playing on, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or the day after Christmas in Montgomery? Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
find better bowl ties, find, better opportunities there. You've had teams ranked basically now in the last few years and really accelerate and do well. Uh, what's the payoff? There really isn't any, right? And there was some conversations of, hey, we wanted to go and push for Arkansas State to get an at-large in basketball. I mean, go back to the days, 10, 15 years ago. This has been a one bid league for how long? With the exception of last year, where James Madison won 32 games, and you don't have anybody out there banging the drum for teams anywhere postseason
yeah,
wise. Well, how do you fix that? You fix it with scheduling. You fix it with talking to your programs and saying, what do you guys need to build these up and be a national brand? Those conversations are, to my knowledge, don't happen because
yeah,
it's just, oh, I mean, Carl Benson said it best. Look, you guys got to figure it out because I can't give you a plan that you guys are just going to say, yeah, we can't do that. We don't have the money to do it. We don't want to do that. No one wants to play us. Okay, you can make excuses all you want, but ultimately the league as a whole has to basically pull itself up. Now we'll see what happens. Again, you're going to continue to have that middle, that soft, gooey middle, basically of the league, basically. But
I
as
love
I
soft, gooey middles.
as I've told people specifically in basketball, and we started with that conversation, the league's not going to get better, and it needs programs like Georgia State, like Louisiana, to be better, to lift it up, to have 4, 5, 6 teams
Come
that
Lafayette.
that are really good. Again, Arkansas State, they lose their best coach. They have the best two-year run probably in recent memory. Now, what do they become? Right? They have a critical hire they have to make. They lose a ton of players as well. Arkansas State has been pretty average to terrible for a long time in our
I think
existence.
they got like a $900,000 buyout on their coach leaving too.
Yeah,
So they got
which is great. Yeah.
They got they got some signing bonus money or something like that.
Yeah,
So.
and they've been through it on football. They were on that, but I think ultimately the conference leadership as a whole has just been very head scratching. You're just seeing kind of decisions made, and to be fair, the conference commissioner is not going to do anything that the presidents don't want to do. So they're basically just like you have in pro sports. Your commissioner's out there as the human meat shield, basically. But this league just has to get serious on a lot of different levels, and the fans bemoan it when they'll see it in college baseball as well when they want 4 or 5 regionals and they get 1 or 2, and you have great teams in the Sun Belt. You really do.
All right, man. I think we crushed this one, Ryan.
Crushed.
All right, we'll see you again in 6 months. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, let's get together before the football season starts, or do something in the off season. Thanks, Ben. Once again, always a joy and pleasure to have you here. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much for listening. Ryan and I are going to do last call. I'm not even going to do the long spiel about Patreon, but find it on patreon.com/native Atlanta. Say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye, guys.